What if everything you use every day, the energy that lights up your home, the engines that move entire cities, the invisible waves that connect the world, originated from the ideas of a single man that history preferred to forget? This is not just a rhetorical provocation. It's a question that's uncomfortable because it forces us to review what we've been taught about progress, innovation, and recognition. When we talk about Nikola Tesla, the name almost always appears as a footnote, an eccentric genius, someone curious but secondary. What if that image was wrong from the start? The official narrative tends to oversimplify the story. She gives us easy heroes, repeated names, convenient versions. But there are figures who do not fit into this mold because they thought beyond their time, challenged power structures, and refused to transform knowledge into a simple commodity. Tesla was one of these figures. A man who not only invented machines but imagined complete systems, worlds functioning in an integrated, connected, almost organic way. Ideas that for many of his contemporaries seemed absurd, impossible, or even dangerous. What almost no one tells you is that the modern world was not born from a single moment of collective genius, but from specific decisions about who would be remembered and who would be left behind. And that's exactly where Tesla's story becomes uncomfortable. Because the more you look at how our technological civilization works, the more you realize that there are traces of him everywhere, even when his name isn't there. This raises a disturbing question. Does progress always go hand in hand with historical justice? This question is not just about the past. It echoes in the present. If a man like Tesla could be ignored, ridiculed and erased while his ideas silently shaped the future, what else could have been lost along the way? How many inventions, how many solutions, how many possibilities were stifled because they didn't fit the right interests? As we begin this story, we are not just talking about an inventor, but opening a rift in the way we understand the very idea of human advancement. And perhaps that is exactly why, even decades after his death, the name Nikola Tesla still provokes curiosity, fascination, and, for some, even discomfort. Because revisiting your trajectory isn't just about looking back. It's about questioning the invisible foundation on which the modern world was built. After raising the question that opens this rift in history, it's impossible not to look into the mind behind it all. Nikola Tesla didn't think like other inventors of his time. While many sought to solve immediate problems, he imagined entire systems working in harmony, decades ahead of the reality that surrounded him. His mind worked not in small improvements, but in giant leaps, as if the future was constantly projected before him, clear, detailed, almost palpable. Tesla had a rare ability to visualize complete machines before he even built them. He didn't rely on trial and error like most. In his mind, every gear, every electrical current, every invisible field already existed, functioning perfectly. This put him in a strange position. He didn't seem like a traditional inventor, but someone translating something that was already ready on another plane of understanding. For a society still struggling to understand the basics of electricity, this kind of thinking sounded almost like delusion. The problem is that the world at the time wasn't interested in ideas that couldn't be quickly monetized. Tesla's vision went beyond immediate profit. He talked about abundant energy, wireless transmission, global communication, automation and remote control when these concepts still seemed like science fiction. And every time he presented these ideas, the reaction was the same: admiration mixed with distrust. Because a mind that sees so far also threatens established structures. This mismatch between genius and historical context created a silent abyss. Tesla failed not because of a lack of intelligence or technical ability, but because his thinking advanced faster than society could keep up. He offered solutions to problems the world didn't yet know it would have, and that paradoxically made him invisible. After all, how can you recognize the importance of something that doesn't yet seem necessary? While the 19th century slowly advanced, Tesla was already mentally drawing the 21st century. He spoke of a planet interconnected by invisible waves, of machines that would respond to remote commands, of energy flowing freely without depending on cables or borders. Today, these ideas seem obvious, but at that moment, they were disturbing. Not because they were impossible, but because they dismantled the logic of control, scarcity, and centralization that sustained the political power. Industrial. This is where the story begins to take on a more tense tone. Because the further Tesla advanced in his vision, the further he moved away from social acceptance. He was not just a genius ahead of his time. He was a genius in a world that was not yet mature enough to understand the scope of what he was proposing. And this growing distance between vision and reality set the stage for much greater conflicts that were yet to come. As Nikola Tesla's vision became clearer and bolder, something equally powerful began to move against him. Not overtly, but silently, strategically, almost invisibly. It was not a declared war with public confrontations or direct accusations. It was a war of interests, fought behind the scenes of industry, money, and influence. A war where ideas were not only evaluated by their potential to change the world, but by how much they could be controlled. The problem was not with Tesla's genius, but precisely with her. His proposals did not fit into the traditional model of industrial progress based on scarcity, demands, and dependence. Freely transmitted energy, decentralized systems, technologies that cut out intermediaries, all of these sounded like a direct threat to those who profited from monopolies and controlled infrastructure. And when an idea threatens consolidated structures, it stops being just science and starts to be seen as a risk. This war did not need explicit censorship. All that was needed was to redirect investments, withdraw support, publicly discredit, and treat certain ideas as fanciful or impractical. Tesla was beginning to realize that he was not just competing with other inventors, but with an entire system that decided which advances would be accepted and which would be discarded. Recognition did not depend solely on technical merit, but on alignment with very specific economic interests. While some names were promoted as symbols of progress, Tesla took the opposite path. He refused to simplify his visions to please financiers. They talked about the future when they wanted an immediate return. He spoke of humanity when they wanted profit, and that put him in a dangerous position, that of someone impossible to control. Little by little, his most daring ideas began to be treated not as possible revolutions, but as eccentricities of a genius who was difficult to deal with. The most disturbing thing is that this war left no visible marks. There are no clear records of direct persecution, just a pattern, projects interrupted, promises not kept, doors that closed one by one. Tesla was not. Defeated in a single moment, he was worn down over time. And the more the industrial world advanced using adapted versions of concepts he had imagined, the more his name disappeared from the center of the narrative. This invisible war shaped not only Tesla's destiny, but the course of technological history itself. Because when certain ideas are silenced too soon, the future follows a slower, more controlled, more limited path. And perhaps that's why, looking back, there's the uncomfortable feeling that something much bigger was at stake, something that went far beyond patents, machines, or public recognition. And it is exactly at this point that history begins to darken even more, as the effects of this silent war would not end there. After this invisible war, something curious began to happen. Even without public recognition, Nikola Tesla's ideas did not disappear. On the contrary, they began to silently infiltrate the real world, shaping people's daily lives in such profound ways that today they seem natural, obvious, almost inevitable. The paradox is that millions of people use principles created by Tesla every day without ever associating them with his name. The electricity that travels long distances, powering entire cities, does not work by chance. It follows concepts that Tesla defended when few believed this was possible. Electric motors, power systems, automation, long-distance communication, all of these carry fragments of a vision that was born long before society was ready to accept it. The world did not adopt Tesla as a symbol, but adopted his ideas as a basis. The most impressive thing is to realize how these inventions became invisible precisely because they work so well. When something is completely integrated into everyday life, it stops being questioned. Few stop to think about where the principles that underpin electrical networks, radio waves, or wireless transmission systems come from. This normalization erased the creator's trace, while the effect of his mind spread to every corner of the planet. Tesla did not think about isolated devices, but about technological ecosystems. He saw electricity not just as energy, but as language, something that could carry information, movement, and control. Today, we live in exactly that world, surrounded by invisible signals, connected by waves, dependent on electrical systems that never sleep. And all of this has become so common that we forget how revolutionary it was to imagine this scenario in a time of unstable light bulbs and rudimentary engines. This erasure was not immediate. It happened as other names began to occupy the public space, while Tesla's ideas were incorporated, adapted, diluted. The result was a kind of inheritance without a signature. A legacy so powerful that it has outlived its creator, but so fragmented that it is rarely recognized as a whole. The world has moved on, using the tools he helped create, without ever asking the most uncomfortable question. Why doesn't Tesla's name go with it all? And the more we observe how modern society works, the more this question becomes inevitable. Because if these inventions are everywhere, they sustain the present and drive the future, then the silence around those who created them does not seem like a simple chance. It seems the result of something much deeper, which still needs to be revealed. As Nikola Tesla's ideas silently infiltrated the modern world, something began to become clear to those who observed carefully. It was not just the technological impact that caused discomfort, but the philosophical and social reach of what he proposed. Tesla wasn't just talking about more efficient machines. He spoke of a new model of the world, where energy would no longer be an instrument of control and would become a widely accessible right. This kind of thinking was deeply disturbing to the power structures of the time. Energy has always been synonymous with dominance. Whoever controls the source controls the rhythm of society, industry, and even politics. By suggesting the possibility of wireless energy transmission on a large scale, Tesla called into question an entire system based on tariffs, centralized infrastructure, and constant dependence. It wasn't just a technical innovation, it was a threat to the current economic model. The fear came not from the fact that his ideas were impossible, but from the opposite. They seemed dangerously feasible. The further Tesla advanced, the more evident it became that his knowledge could not be easily limited or molded to serve specific interests. He did not talk about patents as a priority, nor about exclusivity. He spoke of human advancement, of collective progress, of a future where technology would free instead of imprison. This type of vision generates immediate resistance, not with direct attacks, but with organized skepticism, subtle discrediting, and progressive isolation. Tesla began to be portrayed less as a visionary scientist and more as an excessive dreamer, someone whose ideas were interesting, but unrealistic. This narrative worked perfectly. It alienated financiers, undermined public trust, and weakened his position without having to openly confront him. What is scary in Tesla's case is the realization that the most transformative knowledge almost always encounters invisible barriers. Ideas that promise efficiency are celebrated. Ideas that promise freedom, not so much. And Tesla was traveling exactly in this dangerous territory, where science and power collide. He saw a world less dependent on intermediaries, less vulnerable to artificial scarcity, more connected by the natural principles of the universe. This silent clash left deep marks. Projects interrupted, promises never fulfilled, dreams postponed indefinitely. And while the world moved forward using limited versions of his ideas, the more radical core of his vision remained on the sidelines, shrouded in doubt, rumor, and silence. Not because it was fake, but because maybe it was too soon or too threatening. And it is at this point that Tesla's story begins to take on even darker contours, because what happens when knowledge that is too powerful falls into the limbo between the possible and the forbidden? As time passed, the impact of resistance to Nikola Tesla's ideas began to manifest itself more visibly, not in the headlines, but in the growing loneliness that began to surround him. The same man who had been celebrated as a promising genius began to disappear from decision-making centers, major investments and conversations that defined the direction of technology. There was no exact moment of rupture, just a gradual, almost imperceptible, but deeply devastating departure. Tesla was always different, and this difference, which at first seemed fascinating, began to be used against him. His reserved posture, his material detachment, and his refusal to negotiate principles caused him to be labeled as difficult, eccentric, and unreliable. Little by little, these characteristics began to justify abandonment. After all, in a world driven by immediate results, there was no room for someone who talked of distant futures and collective benefits. The isolation was not just financial, but intellectual and emotional. Tesla continued creating, imagining, designing, but now in silence. His thoughts advanced as his public presence diminished. It's a disturbing contrast. A mind in full activity trapped in a body, increasingly forgotten by society. The world moved forward, but left behind the one who had helped draw the path. This silence was not imposed by a single force, but by many small decisions. Invitations that stopped arriving, financing that never materialized, press attention diverted to more palatable names. The result was a slow erasure, which did not destroy his ideas, but removed their creator from the main stage of history. Tesla was not defeated by failing, but by not fitting in. The saddest thing is realizing that this isolation has not diminished his conviction. Even alone, Tesla continued to believe that the future would eventually catch up with his ideas, and in a way, he was right. But this hit came too late for him. The silence that surrounded him was not proof of irrelevance, but of a world incapable of dealing with someone who did not accept compromises with what he considered wrong. At this point in the story, the figure of Tesla stops being just that of an inventor and starts to represent something bigger, the recurring destiny of minds that see too far. Because when advancement cannot be controlled, it is isolated, and when it cannot be silenced completely, it is forgotten. And this forgetfulness, as we will see, did not prevent something even more disturbing from happening. When silence began to completely envelop Nikola Tesla, something even more disturbing began to gain space. The feeling that not everything he created, thought, or recorded has reached us. Tesla was not just an inventor of visible machines. Much of his work existed in the realm of ideas, of unfinished projects, of concepts that were too far ahead to even be tested. And that's precisely when the question that crosses time arises. What happened to all this? After his progressive withdrawal from the public scene, Tesla continued producing, taking notes, drawing possibilities. He spoke of fundamental principles of the universe, of energy on scales that few could understand, of applications that went beyond everyday technology. However, unlike other inventors, he did not leave an organized, patented, and protected legacy. Much of what existed was dispersed, fragmented, vulnerable to oblivion or appropriation. This lack of clarity feeds a dangerous historical void, because when there are no accessible records, space is created for incomplete versions, convenient narratives, and strategic silences. Some of Tesla's knowledge simply did not keep up with the technological advancement of the following century. It didn't appear in books, it wasn't celebrated, it wasn't officially developed. And this raises an inevitable suspicion. Was everything really lost by chance? The discomfort increases when we remember that Tesla dealt with sensitive ideas, concepts that dealt with energy on a large scale, global transmission, remote control, frequencies, vibrations, knowledge that, if misinterpreted or misused, could be considered dangerous. In a world already suspicious of his vision, it is not difficult to imagine that certain ideas were considered best forgotten, not because they were false, but because they were difficult to control. The most disturbing thing is that we don't know exactly what stopped existing. There is no clear list of what was abandoned, what was discontinued, or what simply never came to light. This lack of knowledge creates a constant echo in Tesla's story. The feeling that we are only dealing with fragments, with an incomplete version of something much larger, a puzzle where several pieces never reached our hands, and perhaps that is exactly what maintains the fascination surrounding his name, because when we look at what has already been incorporated into the modern world, it is impossible not to imagine the potential of what was left along the way. Ideas that could have accelerated progress, transformed societies, or completely changed our relationship with energy and technology. This void is not just historical, it is symbolic. He represents everything that the world was not ready to receive. And while we continue trying to rebuild Tesla's legacy from the pieces that remain, a question continues to hang in the air, silent and uncomfortable. If so much has already changed, thanks to what we know, what would have happened if nothing had been lost? Even with gaps, silences, and missing parts, the most surprising thing is to realize how Nikola Tesla continues to be present in today's world in an almost invisible way. The 21st century, with all its technological complexity, seems to have finally caught up with the mind of Tesla. What once sounded like delirium is now routine. What seemed impossible became indispensable. We live surrounded by waves that we cannot see, by energy that moves without us having to think about it, by automated systems that respond to instantaneous commands. Global communication, connected devices, data transmission, remote control, distributed intelligence. All of these concepts speak directly to ideas that Tesla already articulated when the world was still in its infancy towards electrification. It is as if the present were, little by little, translating a language written much earlier. The most intriguing thing is that Tesla did not think of technology as something separate from nature. For him, electricity, frequency, vibration, and energy were extensions of universal laws. Today, when we talk about wireless networks, resonance, electromagnetic fields, and even renewable energy, we are returning to this integrated vision. The difference is that we now have tools to understand and apply what was once just genius intuition. The modern world prides itself on its innovation, but rarely recognizes its roots. Many of today's advances appear as if they were recent discoveries, when, in fact, they are developments of much older concepts. Tesla didn't just envision machines, but human behaviors shaped by technology. A connected planet, information flowing freely, borders reduced by instant communication. Exactly the scenario we live in today. This belated reunion between vision and reality reveals something important. Tesla wasn't wrong. He was too early, and when an idea arrives too soon, it doesn't disappear. It waits. Wait until the world has the maturity, need, and technical capacity to receive it. The 21st century not only uses Tesla principles, he confirms that his way of thinking was aligned with the future that would inevitably come. Maybe that's why interest in Tesla never wanes. Each new technology seems to bring out echoes of his ideas. Each advance raises the silent question: how many other visions of him are still dormant, waiting for the right moment to emerge? Because if the present already reflects so much of what he imagined, then Tesla's legacy is not over. It is in full swing. As the world finally catches up to many of the ideas Nikola Tesla put forth decades ago, an inevitable question arises. Why did this recognition take so long? The answer lies not in a single factor, but in a complex combination of interests, technological limitations, and historical choices that favored simpler narratives and more convenient characters. Recognizing Tesla fully would require admitting that progress was neither linear nor fair. For a long time, the history of technology needed easy-to-understand heroes, successful entrepreneurs, inventors associated with clear products, figures who represented economic victory. Tesla didn't fit that model. He did not leave a large company with his name, nor did he accumulate a fortune, nor did he bother to turn every idea into exclusive property. His legacy was diffuse, conceptual, spread across fundamental principles. And that's hard to celebrate in a culture that values immediate results. Furthermore, recognizing Tesla requires an uncomfortable review of the past. It means admitting that ideas were ignored, not because they lacked merit, but because they did not align with dominant interests. It means accepting that technological advancement could have followed different paths, perhaps faster, perhaps broader, if certain views had not been marginalized. This kind of historical revision rarely happens without resistance. Only now, with enough temporal distance, does the world begin to see the full picture. Technology has matured, society has become more connected, and curiosity for forgotten stories has gained strength. In this new context, Tesla stops, seeming like an eccentric, and starts to be seen as what he always was, a systemic thinker, someone who understood technology as a force to transform civilization and not just as a tool for profit. The delayed recognition also reflects a cultural shift. Today, there is more space to discuss historical injustices, to question official versions, and to rescue names that were left on the sidelines. Tesla benefits from this movement not because of fashion, but because his work stands the test of time. The further the world advances, the more evident it becomes that his ideas were not delusions. They were anticipations. And perhaps the most ironic thing is to realize that Tesla didn't need recognition to be right. His ideas survived without applause, without tributes, and without justice during his lifetime. Now, as his name finally begins to take the place it always deserved, it's clear that this recognition isn't just about him. It's about the human need to correct one's memory. Why? Understanding Tesla today is, in a way, admitting that the future was always there, just waiting for someone to have the courage to see it. When we look at everything that has been said so far, it is impossible to treat Nikola Tesla as just a character from the past. His legacy is not kept in museums, nor restricted to old books. It pulses silently in every electrical system, in every signal that passes through the air, in every technology that connects people, cities, and continents. Tesla is not a distant memory. He is a force in constant activity. The most impactful thing is realizing that this legacy continues to expand. As new technologies emerge, many of them seem to merely continue ideas that Tesla had already imagined. It is as if the world is, little by little, deciphering a project left unfinished. Every modern technological advance acts as a belated confirmation that your vision was correct, even when no one was willing to accept it. But perhaps Tesla's true legacy goes beyond inventions. He left a dangerous and inspiring example at the same time, that of someone who refused to submit knowledge to the logic of absolute control. In a world that often turns innovation into an instrument of power, Tesla insisted on seeing science as a path to human liberation. And this, more than any machine, is what continues to bother us. This moving legacy forces us to ask a question that goes far beyond history. How many revolutionary ideas are being ignored today because they don't fit into the current system? How many advances are being delayed, not because of a lack of capacity, but because of a lack of convenience? Tesla thus becomes an uncomfortable mirror of the present, reminding us that real progress is not always one that receives immediate applause. And perhaps that's exactly why his story never truly ends. The more the world evolves, the more his name resurfaces, the more his ideas become relevant, the more his legacy moves. Not as something completed, but as an ongoing process, still ongoing, still challenging our understanding of what is possible. Because in the end, understanding Tesla is not just recognizing a forgotten genius. It's accepting that the future often starts silent and waits patiently until someone is ready to listen to it. What if everything that drives the modern world today, electricity, wireless communication, automation, the energy that runs through entire cities, had been designed by someone who almost no one recognized during their lifetime? What if the progress you see every day was supported by ideas that have been ignored, distorted, or silenced? This question is not just historical curiosity, it directly touches on how we understand innovation, power, and truth. Because when we talk about Nikola Tesla, we're not just talking about an inventor, but a hidden legacy that continues to move forward, even decades after his death. The story is usually told by the winners, by those who controlled the resources, by the most convenient versions. But there are minds that do not fit into these simple narratives. Minds that saw the future before the world was ready to accept it. Nikola Tesla was one of these minds, a visionary genius ahead of his time who imagined a connected planet, powered by efficient, clean and affordable energy, when most people were still trying to understand the basic principles of electricity. And perhaps that's exactly why his story bothers him so much to this day. Think for a moment. How many times have you heard the name Nikola Tesla directly associated with the functioning of the modern world? How many times is it mentioned when we talk about electrical energy, networks, technology that shapes everyday life? Few. And this silence is not accidental, because Tesla didn't just think about machines, he thought about complete systems, about a future where technology would serve humanity, not control. And ideas like this always face resistance. Tesla saw energy as something natural, abundant, capable of being transmitted without physical barriers, without wires, without borders. He talked about global communication, remote control, automation, when these concepts seemed like science fiction. Today, we live exactly in this scenario. We are surrounded by invisible waves. We depend on complex electrical systems. We trust our lives to technologies that work thanks to principles that he already understood more than a century ago. And even so, his name remains on the sidelines of the main narrative. This raises an uncomfortable question. Why are some ideas celebrated while others are pushed into oblivion? Why do certain inventors become global icons while others, equally or even more brilliant, are treated as eccentrics? The answer involves interests, power, control of knowledge. Tesla didn't fit the immediate profit model act. He didn't just want to sell inventions. I wanted to transform the way humanity related to energy and its own future. Throughout this video, you will realize that Nikola Tesla's legacy does not belong to the past. It is present in every technological advance, in every electrical system, in every innovation that depends on invisible but fundamental principles. And the more we look at the modern world, the more evident it becomes that Tesla was not forgotten by chance. There is something much greater behind this erasure, something that begins in his extraordinary mind and extends behind the scenes of power that shaped the 20th century. And to understand how a man was able to see so far, we need to go back to where it all began. To Tesla's mind, the unique way he thought, and the inevitable clash between his vision and a world that was not yet prepared for the future he already saw clearly. Before we continue and go even deeper into this story, I need to know if you are actually following and understanding what is being revealed here. This content is not just informative, it requires attention, reflection, and an open mind. So, comment below what has surprised you most so far about Nikola Tesla and the hidden legacy that still moves the modern world. Write even one word, because your comment shows that this message is reaching those who really want to understand. If this video is making you see technology, history, and progress in a different way, leave a like now. This simple gesture helps the content reach more people who also need to understand this story that is almost never told. And if you are not yet subscribed to the channel, subscribe now, because here we don't go beyond the surface. Here we delve deeper, question and reveal what has been hidden for a long time. Stay with me, because what comes next connects all of this in an even more impactful way. From the moment you start to see Nikola Tesla beyond the label of eccentric inventor, something changes in the way the modern world starts to make sense. Because the more you look at the logic behind major technological transformations, the more you realize that nothing emerged spontaneously or randomly. There is an invisible thread connecting ideas, visions, and discoveries that span decades, sometimes centuries. And in this line, Nikola Tesla occupies a central position, even when they tried to push him to the margins of history. Tesla did not think about isolated inventions. He thought of complete systems, of networks, of energy flows, of global communication, of a world where technology would function almost as a natural extension of the Earth itself. While others sought to solve immediate problems, he tried to understand universal principles: frequency, vibration, resonance, invisible fields. Words that sound technical today, but for him were keys to unlocking a new stage of human civilization. This way of thinking not only differentiated him, it isolated him. The clash between Tesla's mind and the world around him was not just scientific, it was cultural and economic. We lived, and still live, in a society that rewards what can be controlled, sold, exploited. Tesla, on the other hand, spoke of abundant energy, broad access, and technologies that would reduce dependence on intermediaries. This type of vision doesn't just threaten business models, it threatens entire power structures. And when knowledge begins to threaten control, it stops being celebrated and starts being treated as a problem. Little by little, Tesla became an increasingly out-of-place figure, not because he stopped creating, but because he continued to create things that the world didn't know how to absorb. Their projects became bolder, broader, more difficult to fit into a system that demanded immediate results. And so, without a major public conflict, without an obvious scandal, his presence was erased. There wasn't a moment where they said, Tesla doesn't matter anymore. They simply stopped listening to him. Meanwhile, ironically, many of his ideas lived on. They were adapted, reinterpreted, fragmented. Fundamental concepts of modern electricity, power transmission, wireless communication, and automation began to appear in different places, under different names, linked to different figures. The world moved forward, but it did so without recognizing the full origin of these ideas. It's as if Tesla's legacy has been scattered to pieces, diluted until it loses its original signature. This creates a strange feeling when we look at the present. We live on a planet connected by invisible signals, dependent on constant energy, guided by automatic systems that work in the background, exactly the kind of world Tesla described. And yet, his name rarely comes up when we discuss the B-aces of this progress. This silence is not just a historical detail, it shapes how we understand innovation. Because when we erase those who thought about the future, we also erase the possibility of learning from the way they thought. Tesla did not see technology as an end, but as a means. For him, true advancement was not in accumulating power, but in unleashing potential. This view remains uncomfortable to this day. Maybe that's why his story is still told in an incomplete, fragmented, superficial way. Talking about Tesla in depth forces us to question who decides which ideas thrive and which are left behind. It forces us to look at science not just as progress, but as a dispute. And the deeper we delve into this trajectory, the clearer it becomes that Tesla's isolation was not the result of failure, but of incompatibility. He did not fail to invent, it failed to adapt. He failed to accept limits that didn't make sense for someone who thought on a planetary scale. And this type of failure is usually unforgivable at any time. Even today, ideas that arrive too soon are treated with suspicion, ridicule, or silence. Maybe that's why Nikola Tesla's story never seems finished. There is always the feeling that something was left open, that important parts were left along the way. And this is not just historical curiosity, it is an invitation to reflection. If so many of his ideas were only understood decades later, how many others are still waiting? How many visions today are ignored because they seem too big, too bold, too dangerous? I want to know what's going through your head right now. Comment below if, up to this point, you see Nikola Tesla more as a wronged genius, a visionary ahead of his time, or a warning about how the world treats ideas that it cannot control. If there is a phrase that sticks in your mind, write it in the comments. If a word sums up what you are feeling, comment on that word. This helps me understand how you're seeing this story and sets the stage for what comes next. If you made it to the end of this video, it's because this story really made sense to you. So now I want a comment from you below. Write Tesla in the comments if you believe that Nikola Tesla was a genius wronged by history, or write future if you think he was simply ahead of his time. This comment is important because it shows that you followed through to the end and helps this content reach more people who need to hear this story. If this video made you see the modern world in a different way, leave a like now. This simple gesture strengthens the channel and allows us to continue bringing deep, revealing content outside the common narrative. And if you're not already subscribed, subscribe to the channel now, because here you'll find stories that don't appear in books, analyses that go beyond the surface, and reflections that really make you think.